It's December 2013, and I've just got home with my long-awaited baby. But it's not sunshine and rainbows like I thought it would be. I'm terrified of him. I'm plagued with terrifying thoughts of harm coming to him. I imagine dropping him down the stairs as I talk myself out of a panic attack. And I lock those thoughts away for nobody else to see, because I'm scared that someone will take him away from me. I've just got back from what I can only describe as an ordeal that's left me with terrifying, intrusive thoughts that make me feel like a monster, an ordeal that's triggered a rapid decline in my mental health. I struggle to feed him, I struggle to bond with him, and I fantasize about running away. And every time I think about his birth, adrenaline shoots through my body and sends me into anxiety. I'd never heard of birth trauma before, but here I was in the midst of it. The thing is it can be completely avoided if a mother is prepared mentally for birth, just as much as she's prepared physically and practically, and this is where traditional antenatal education is falling short. A study from the University of Oxford last year found that suicide is the biggest killer of new mums. With this in mind, can we afford to be ignoring this issue anymore? Because when a mum is mentally prepared for birth, she's far less likely to go on and struggle with her mental health. Feeling out of control, powerless, traumatized from childbirth is more common than you might realize. Statistics from the Birth Trauma Association show that 1 in 3 mothers will leave hospital feeling traumatized, and 1 in 10 mothers will leave hospital with post-traumatic stress. It's often confused with depression and anxiety, and if left untreated, it can linger. And there's been some reports of mums still feeling the effects 20 years later. Symptoms can include anxiety, flashbacks, and avoidance. You don't have to have had your life in danger to feel traumatized. You could have had an emergency cesarean, you could have had lots of interventions, you could have had an assisted birth, you could have had lack of privacy, not being listened to, not having things explained, feeling powerless, feeling out of control. Those can all contribute to you feeling traumatized after birth. Here's my issue. Mums are walking into the labour wards with absolutely no idea how it can affect them mentally. They're walking in, doing as they're told, and having their choices taken away, and thinking that that's the only way. The events of my own son's birth still shock me 6 years later. All the interventions I was given, the interventions that stole me of my power, took away my autonomy, took away my dignity, and made me a passenger in my own son's birth. The countless internal examinations I had that made me feel embarrassed, made me feel violated. The grief that I felt afterwards, the helplessness that I felt afterwards, and the powerlessness that I felt afterwards. Hospitals are under such fear of litigation that they're giving out interventions at the slightest chance of fatality. But with suicide being such a high risk for new mums, are we pushing the problem elsewhere? The way it currently works is that when you reach 42 weeks gestation, you will be given you'll be offered a synthetic birth induction. So this means to bring your birth on synthetically, because you will be told that it's dangerous for the baby. But a study from out this year from the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists found that this procedure isn't absolutely necessary, and it poses big risks for a mother's mental health. She's more likely to need more pain medication, she's more likely to be immobile, she's more likely to need extra interventions, and she's more likely to have a negative experience. And on top of this, the synthetic hormones that are administered to give you contractions are more likely to lead on to mental health problems, and you're more likely to have a problem bonding with your child. The current birth model is failing mums. It's based on fear, it's based on urgency, and it's based on deadlines. And when a mother feels fearful during childbirth, it triggers her fight, flight, or freeze response. And this makes her brain believe that she is in actual danger. And it will send a message to her body to say, you are in danger, you need to prepare for this. So you need to prepare to fight or run away. And it will send a message to the baby to say, stay where you are, it's not safe to come out. Because it releases adrenaline, and that adrenaline puts a block on your birth hormones. So when you are scared during labour, it slows the labour down. And that means that there's even higher chance of more interventions being introduced. And the more interventions you have, the higher your risk of leaving with birth trauma. Mums need to have all the information so that they can make informed decisions for themselves. If they're going to have a synthetic birth induction, they need to know why they're being given it, what it is, the pros and the cons, and the risks to them and the baby. If they're going to have their waters broken with a hook, they need to know why and what's it for, and the pros and cons and the risks to them and the baby. They need to be making the decisions at such a life-altering moment. It is one of the most vulnerable times in a woman's life, and she needs to be in control of the decision-making. There's so much fear around childbirth, we are creating an epidemic of birth trauma. We're led to believe that birth is this medical emergency. It's not. It's the most natural thing in the world. And we need to stop interfering in this natural process. There's so much focus on a mother's physical health, but what about her mental health? Because when a mother is mentally prepared for birth and empowered during childbirth, she is far less likely to go on and struggle with her mental health, nipping it in the bud at the very source. And when a mother feels empowered during childbirth, she's far less likely to go home, crying into a pillow, running away from her thoughts and wishing her child hadn't been born. 1 in 3 is too many. There's something wrong here. All this fear is robbing a woman of her wisdom and her intuition. So let's start today. Let's start looking at childbirth differently. Let's give mums back their power during childbirth, and let's give mums back their choices. Let's change our perception of childbirth from something fearful and urgent to something natural and beautiful and empowering. Thank you.